I seem to have injured my foot, so in this video I probably won't be trotting around as much as I usually do, though maybe I will fall back into the old habit, and one of my feet will be in unspeakable agony at all times. It is unfortunately my editing foot that's hurt, so I'm gonna have to keep this video fairly brief. Okay, so let's be honest for a moment here. It is time to look at the time. And oh, would you look at that? It is way past Legalise It Already o'clock. What are we still doing with the weed? I mean, like, we as the Western world. Why isn't that shit legalized pretty much everywhere? This is a serious question, by the way, because I have never in my life met even a single person who was so adamantly against marijuana that they couldn't be convinced by like one or two fairly simple arguments, and it turned out that their opposition to it was actually just because they hadn't given the matter much thought. I mean, I've met people who've had like bad experiences with marijuana, you know, the ones who had the one friend who was super depressed and had other issues in high school and he got drowned himself in weed. And they went, oh, you really became a very different person. And even they will, after like a short conversation, go, well, yeah, this is also more the exception than the rule. You just gotta be very careful with weed. I have talked to conservative grandmas who were convinced that the gays are degenerates that are destroying Western society, and atheists are devil worshippers that'll go to hell, and they're cool with weed.
Well, my friend Annie had glaucoma, and it really helped her out with that, so I tried it for my back pain, and I feel 20 years younger again.
You have, like, politicians, the former presidents of the United States admitting that they used to smoke weed when they were younger. And probably a lot of them still do. We live in a society where you can go to a store and you can buy these sticks that are filled with just exclusively poison. They don't have a fraction of the positive effect that marijuana has, but they are super fucking deadly. And it's no problem, we have extra rooms for people to go smoke them in many establishments. I am, of course, referring to death sticks. We celebrate the imbibing of liquids that could, if you're not careful, basically kill you in one sitting, and part of that is just high culinary culture. But the green herb that's physically impossible to overdose on, that has verifiable medical benefits, and that cannot be medically addictive, that's the one we have to keep off the shelves. We can't have matchsticks. You know how dangerous those are? Now excuse me as I cook my steak with a literal flamethrower that I keep in my closet. In the United States, 62% of people are in favor of legalizing marijuana. This isn't 62% in favor of decriminalizing marijuana like they did in Portugal and the Netherlands. This is 62% in favor of straight up making it legal. And this is also in spite of the huge, like, Christian conservative straight edge population that exists in that country, which doesn't really exist in pretty much all of Europe. And there are some states that are ahead of the curve and are working on decriminalization and legalization, where they have systems in place where that works very well, though I would argue they are more like on the curve, or like slightly behind the curve. And the rest of all the states, in America and Europe, by the way, is just way behind on the curve. And let's be honest here, most of the areas where it is legalized, there is a reason why the system is set up in a way that small business operations, or maybe operations that were operating earlier and are trying to transition into legalization, which is not always as easy as you might imagine, are being murdered by red tape, which big corporations that have been lobbying to keep marijuana illegal for decades are now very easily circumventing, because obviously they're big corporations. They can front a lot more money, they can front a lot more manpower, they have a lot more connections in the political realm, they can corner the market that they have been trying to keep destroyed for a long time, because that's what they're invited to do. And this is where we get to the crux of the issue. These corporations are, for the most part, made from the same stone as the medical companies that created the opioid epidemic in the United States, where they got millions of Americans hooked on hard drugs frankly, I don't think they're much better than Mexican drug cartels. Lawmakers on this issue especially are so utterly divorced from the will of the demos that it is laughable. And it's very easy to tell who's greasing their palms. It's the pharmaceutical industry, who would rather not see alternatives to their products hit the market, unless of course they are invited and guaranteed complete control over the supply of those products. Which is why legalization is happening in the manner in which it is happening. And the same is true about big tobacco, though their lobby hasn't been nearly as powerful in recent decades, because we have been seeing a lot of very effective regulation against cigarettes. Excuse me, death sticks. Couldn't have, market competition for our corporate hegemons, now could we? And I'm not one of those people who will tell you that weed somehow will cure your AIDS and it will give you superpowers, because it won't. No, I think ultimately for your health it has more drawbacks than benefits, but there are a lot of very good things that should be looked into by medical research operations that right now they can't do that, because it's an illegal substance. But let's be honest, if people smoke weed just to get fucked up, let's not pretend like that's not what we do most of the time on the weekend. We have special aisles in the supermarket for things that'll get you fucked up. Getting fucked up is just a popular human pastime. In Germany, the federal government's commissioner on narcotic drugs is notoriously uneducated on the subject. She once literally said, "Weed is forbidden because it is illegal," which is not technically incorrect, but that's a pretty weak argument. That is a sentence that a real human being in a position of power actually said. And there's plenty of politicians and parties that want to legalize weed. It's just that rarely something actually happens in that direction. Unless, of course, you have things like referendums and direct ballot initiatives, in which case, overwhelmingly people say, yeah, do weed. I don't care. I might do it myself, I might not. Just do weed. I am in favor of the weed. Thus, considering the overwhelming popular support for this, the potential medical benefits, the improvement that it could have on the life of addicts, which, possibly if you legalize even harder drugs, that could have an even bigger impact if you treat the whole thing as a public health issue, and 1,000 other reasons. Fucking legalize cannabis already, Jesus Christ! Even law enforcement and judges go, yeah, let's maybe do that with the weed legalization, because this is not how proper drug enforcement works. This is not how you keep the streets clean of hard drugs. And stoners are not going to be the ones who rob like a store to get money to buy heroin because they smoke weed. I mean, you would think that something with this much popular support wouldn't take decades to get passed. If that isn't a red flag for the state of Western democracy, I'm not sure what is. Thank you very much for watching this belated video. I had important things to do yesterday, but I am here now. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the things, share this to your relevant communities, but do not spam them. Buy some of the merchandise, possibly. Consider supporting me on Subscribestar or Patreon. And in that spirit, smoke some weed, or if you don't want to smoke weed, don't smoke some weed, don't fall to peer pressure, make your own choices in life, and see you around, cunts.